The conflict between Israel and Iran is ending its fourth day now, and President Donald Trump has said that Iran is losing this war. He has urged the two nations to start peace talks immediately. He was speaking a little earlier at the start of that G7 summit in Canada that you've just been hearing about. It is set to be dominated by this conflict. And Sir Keir Starmer, who, as you know, is attending, said that the focus here now was on de-escalation. Well, tonight we'll have a report from the G7 summit, as well as the latest from here in Israel. And in the last few hours, Iranian state TV reported that a new wave of attacks on Israel was beginning. In Iran, Israeli airstrikes on the state media complex was captured on live TV. Iran condemned that attack as a war crime. Well, the BBC is not allowed to broadcast from inside Iran, but our colleagues at BBC Persian have been keeping across the developing situation there. Parham Ghobadi has this report.
Iranian state TV came under attack during a live broadcast. An injured reporter who survived is now worried about the fate of others.
I don't know how many of my colleagues were inside the building or how many have been martyred or wounded.
Iran's capital has been under heavy bombardment in recent days. This is Tehran only a few hours ago. Many residents have tried to flee, especially after Israel asked people to evacuate areas near military facilities. But for many, escaping has proven impossible due to paralyzing traffic. BBC Persian cannot operate in Iran, but our audience sends us videos and messages that we verify. One of them told us why he stayed behind.
I gave up because of the heavy traffic. On the other hand, our entire building has been evacuated and someone needs to stay behind to look after the neighbors' belongings. Besides, smaller towns don't have the capacity to accommodate such a large population.
But it's not just Tehran. Strikes are hitting almost every corner of Iran. This is a hospital in the western city of Kermanshah. Iran says Israel was behind the strike. A human rights group and local sources say a missile launcher was deployed nearby, and it may have been the real target. Either way, this is the reality of war. Civilians paying the highest price. The historic city of Isfahan was struck multiple times yesterday. And in the religious city of Mashhad, the Israeli military says it hit refueling aircraft at the airport, some 2,300 kilometers from its borders, the longest range Israeli strike since the beginning of the conflict. Authorities in Iran say it's not only the fighter jets. Israel has also boots on the ground.
The most significant blows by the enemy are carried out by local spies.
Iranian police say they've raided a drone workshop in southern Tehran. They say Israeli agents assemble drones inside the country and then load them onto pickup trucks to launch them from there. Unlike in Israel, Iranians say there are no sirens and no shelters. Many feel they're trapped in a war they never chose after decades of repression. Parham, Ghobadi, BBC News.
Well, BBC Verify has been using satellite imagery to confirm those Israeli attacks inside Iran on nuclear and military sites. Here are some of the locations where strikes have been carried out just in the last few days. Now, this is a missile base in Big Khana. If you compare it with an older image, this satellite image that was taken yesterday clearly shows damage to the roof. And Isfahan is one of Iran's key nuclear sites. It was confirmed over the weekend that 4 critical buildings at this site were damaged, including the uranium conversion facility. And on this satellite image, you can now see visible damage to the buildings there. Well, here in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country is on the way to achieving victory, claiming that it has full aerial control over Tehran. Overnight, Iranian missiles penetrated Israel's air defences in attacks on Tel Aviv, Haifa and other cities. Our Middle East correspondent Lucy Williamson has the latest from Tel Aviv.
Israel started this war to make Israelis safer, it said, seeing Iran's ballistic missiles as a separate existential threat. Last night, several slipped again through Israel's defences. One landing right in the heart of Tel Aviv. The speed of Israel's offensive in Iran is fueled by the knowledge that this is what happens when a single missile lands. The bar Victoria opened here 25 years ago was a few meters from the impact site. Still in shock, she told me Israel needed to keep up its attacks. We need to finish this so it's final, she said, and not postpone it again for another few years. Are you scared? I asked her. Yes, very. At an airbase today, Israel's Prime Minister praised their achievements. The military said it had destroyed a third of Iran's missile launchers.
The Israeli Air Force is in control of the skies of Tehran. This is a change in the entire campaign. We are on the way to achieving both of our goals, the prevention of nuclear threat and the missile threat.
But how much damage can Israel do to Iran's nuclear program? Some of it buried deep underground in secret sites.
We cannot delay it by more than 2 or 3 weeks. And to the best of my judgment, even the Americans cannot delay it for more than few months. And that's a sensitive issue. It means that if there is a determined, a serious intention to block Iran from turning into military nuclear power, the only way is to announce a full-scale war on the regime itself and carry it on until they are toppled down.
Many Israelis remain firmly behind this war as casualties here begin to mount. Israel's army is now pushing hard on Iran's capital city without any sign of a clear end or exit plan. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Tel Aviv.
The conflict here in the Middle East looks to be top of the agenda for G7 leaders at their 3-day summit in Canada. Our North America editor Sarah Smith is at the summit. Sarah.
Yeah, it was not the plan that the world's 7 most economically advanced democracies would all gather here in Canada to talk about the conflict in the Middle East, but that is absolutely what will dominate this summit. And we heard from Donald Trump just a few minutes ago, who seems reasonably confident of some kind of resolution. He says, I think there will be a deal. Iran wants to make a deal, he said. And he has been dismissing questions he's been asked about what it would take for the US to get militarily involved in this conflict, saying that's not something he wants to talk about. And there is one thing that every one of the countries meeting here really does agree on, and that is that Iran should not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. Beyond that, they'll be talking about how to try and de-escalate this conflict over the next couple of days. The majestic Canadian Rockies are, in every sense, a very long way from the Middle East.
It's beautiful, I know. It's beautiful.
But for the world leaders assembling here, it is the Iran-Israel conflict that will dominate their alpine get-together. While each one of them has specific issues to raise with Donald Trump, they all want him to try to calm tensions in the Middle East. Alongside the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he said he believes Iran is ready to talk about de-escalating the fighting.
It's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Before getting down to business, Keir Starmer grabbed the chance for a quick chat with Donald Trump, while the French and Italian leaders whispered. What could they have been talking about here? Sir Keir Starmer hopes to finalise the details of the UK-US trade deal, the only one America has agreed so far. But he says the number one issue is the fear of the Middle East conflict expanding.
But we have to find a way to de-escalate the situation, notwithstanding the concerns that we all have about the nuclear program. There's no doubt about that. Notwithstanding, we all accept Israel's right to self-defense, of course, but there must be de-escalation, and that will be the central focus of much of the discussion today.
When Donald Trump first came to power, he muscled his way through international summits without diplomacy. At the last G7 meeting in Canada 7 years ago, he provoked confrontation before walking out early. This time the other nations must take great care to keep him on side if they hope to reach agreement on anything. The Canadian hosts have already abandoned the idea of trying to get all 7 countries to sign up to the traditional joint communique outlining what they all agree on. That would be nigh on impossible with Donald Trump here. Instead, the best they can hope for is a joint statement urging de-escalation in the Middle East that all 7 leaders can sign up to. Around the table, talks on Israel and Iran will not necessarily produce agreement. A statement has already been drafted calling for de-escalation and for both sides to protect civilians. But US officials have told the BBC's American partner CBS the president does not intend to sign that. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Banff, Canada.